Diversity is a strength of working with curriculum, and identifying the belief systems allows us to understand one another's perspectives. So. Right from House Bill 1490, I believe it's in the first paragraph. This is our purpose is to begin with the end in mind, to develop, to evaluate, modify, revise, and recommend academic performance standards for learning standards. And that is, I believe, the first paragraph from the bill itself. And we're also going to keep it on the chart paper as a reflection as to what our purpose is here today. We need to also keep in mind that it's for all children throughout the state of Missouri. The students that are in St. Louis, Kansas City, to the Spartas, to the West Plains, the Clevers, we're talking about all students. Those students that are special need, those students that are gifted, but it includes all students. This language, as I said, is directly from House Bill 1490. We need to remember we are creating expectations for every Missouri student, keeping in mind there are nearly 1 million students in Missouri from a rich variety of locations, backgrounds, and demographics. As we develop, revise, and recommend these academic performance or learning standards, all of these students must be taken into consideration. Someone mentioned the norms. These are just some norms that we've put down. Of course, we're all very busy people, and we realize that technology is a part of our life. So I realize some of you may need to take a phone call or email someone from work. That is certainly fine. We're all professionals and busy people. But just being mindful of the people that are sitting around you. Breaks. What is your pleasure as far as would you want to have fragmented breaks or designated breaks? So I'd like to hear from the work group, because it should be your decision. Do you want to, on your own, be able to, if you need to use the restroom, make a call, or would you like to take 5 or 10 minute breaks at standard times?
Flexible breaks. Flexible breaks.
Flexible. Do I hear thumbs up for flexible? Everybody raise their hands or thumbs for that? Okay. So we will have flexible breaks. We're all adults. Be an engaged participant as part of your work group, but also share speaking time and respect for others. That's important. And are there other norms that we want to establish as a group?
That we need to meet with our other group.
We are going to try to also honor everyone's time, starting, we were waiting some people because there was a wreck, I believe, on I-70 and one on 63, so we waited a little bit later, but we're going to try to get everybody on time, because I believe it's starting on time as well as ending on time. If we get through our work earlier, then that's to your convenience as well. Just also a reminder, the open meeting rules, Sunshine Law, we are recording it. We also have 2 people that are taking notes on that. It's going to be on YouTube. It will be available in just a few days for that. And then there are town hall meetings. One is to occur, which Nick has alluded to, 30 days from today. And there's a 60-day and then a third one also. And your liaison and your co-liaison will be representing you at those hearings. And then also hearings before the state board and legislators.
We had several people had mentioned earlier the idea of some sort of quorum. We didn't call it that, but in order, do we want to establish, since the bill itself doesn't establish it for us, do we want to establish for our group that we want a minimum number of people present in order to vote on any business?
I want to be wise.
I think so. I mean, I think the general rule of thumb is 1.
So are there 15 in total? Because I believe Jill offered 2 other names.
If they've accepted, okay. That
These
would
are
be
the
something
kinds
that
of
we would-
things that I think your people who aren't here, that we're just too high. I think that's unfair.
Okay, so 2 people out of 15 are not voting today. We have votes on
We have
anything
13
or
here
discussion.
today.
If they've
That's what I just
accepted.
said. Yes.
Didn't you say there should be, what, 17
Could
on
be
this
up.
committee?
Yeah, up to 17.
Could not have been appointed, 2 must not have been appointed
Right.
yet.
So.
Right.
As far as anyone knows.
Yeah.
So I
So-
do agree that it might be problematic to have K through 12 ELA here to discuss some of the standards and that type of thing, but in terms of voting, it seems advantageous to me to have a larger group compiled for any vote, just so that we don't vote and they vote and then there's some sort of issue with what happens at that time. So I appreciate having a smaller group in terms of looking at some of these things and maybe having discussions, but in terms of voting, I do think it would be advantageous to be represented by a larger group of people.
And I think we can't
Probably
really
another concern.
make any kind of guidelines or norms for voting until we meet as a group, because they may have something different in mind. I mean, we could choose a different way to vote in a different number than them, and, you know, it's continuous K through 12, so.
Well,
House bill
the
does.
bill unfortunately did not set it up that way. Now, it's 2 separate committees. If we both mutually agree that that's how we want to do it, we can do that. But right now, they're a separate autonomous committee having these same discussions right now.
The bill specifies.
Right.
The bill specifies 2 work groups.
Right. So I mean, again, I think it's within our purview that if both groups autonomously decide that they want to work together, that's great, and I absolutely agree that's what we should be doing. I think it was a fault on the part of the bill that we split it into 2 groups, but we can't make that decision for them any more than,
And I
yeah.
appreciate Lindsay's point also that, and the point that, Rich made, that discussion is easier in smaller groups, and when you get to know each other, then you can broaden the group, and that might go further with that.
It says 2 work groups in the bill, 1 work group for K through 5 and another work group for 6 through 12. How can we change
Which
that?
doesn't preclude our meeting with them at
Right.
some point.
Right,
Right,
sure,
right,
after
right.
conversations.
That this is our group
Yeah.
right now.
Sure, which
Yeah.
would be fantastic, right.
Did we capture that? Yes. Anything else to add to our norms? Again, also, I think this addresses some of your concerns as well.
Did we decide on the quorum?
No, that we did. I mean, and I hear your point that, you know, we don't want to make decisions until the full committee's present, but if we don't make a decision on a quorum, there is no
Right.
quorum rule, then we can start, I mean,
There are
to me, I feel like we should probably put some basic rules in place, and we can always amend those rules once we get a larger body.
2/3 of voting members,
It-
is
it-
that,
Yes,
so that would be 10 if there are indeed 15.
we know for sure that there's 15, right?
Right. I would feel better, I think, establishing that for now, and if we want to amend it to a different
Right.
number later, that's fine. But I feel without that, you run the risk of, if only 8 people, if only 5 people show up tomorrow, you know, I mean, or
Right.
whatever we set for the next meeting date, that 5 could technically make decisions for this committee unless we put a quorum rule in place for ourselves, since the bill does
Right.
not
That's
establish
true.
that for us.
I second that.
What,
Want to repeat what you
2/3
said?
of the
2/3.
number of appointed members,
Okay.
and that may fluctuate, I
So
suppose.
currently it's, yeah.
As a quorum,
Yes.
To be present.
To be
present
present.
vote.
And we need to
Right.
check on the 2 names that we have and see if there are others that are going to be appointed as well.
And, right.
and that have accepted.
That have it accepted,
Right.
make sure these 2
Right.
have accepted.
Actually, not members present. It would be the members
A total appointed
total
members.
appointed
Appointed.
members.
Total
And
appointed.
so if there isn't a quorum present, we couldn't issue a vote.
Right.
And the 2/3 is from where?
It's a standard Robert's.
It's
Yes,
a
Robert's
right.
rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And what your work group will be working on as you get into the expectations and the standards would be working for consensus.
Right.
That's what you would work through. And the goal would be 100% consensus, but.
I would also suggest, just as a side comment, if we say that the majority is what decides, if the majority is too close, we ought to reconsider. Because if the vote is 8 to 7,
Sure.
that's kind of,
I think we keep working.
Yeah.
I think there's more work to be done. Okay, is everybody comfortable going on?
Yes, ma'am.
One question from the floor downstairs. We're working on the English language arts standards for K through 6, K through 5. And we are wondering if at some point you guys would like to meet with the.
We've been talking about that.
There you go.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I was sent up to ask the question. So, and just to wonder when you might want to convene together.
Do you have?
We have room downstairs for you guys
Oh, you have bigger
wanted,
room?
we're just, we feel like it's really not right for us to meet and develop a bunch of things and then not have you guys.
How far
there to
along are
kind of-
you in the presentation?
Not very far along.
About you? Have you done
Good
it?
Nope,
experience.
haven't even got that far.
Okay, that's kind of where we are as well.
Two work groups in the middle, we did.
With two work groups
There's
and
two
then
part of that, so we wanted to kind of finish our whatever and then
Yeah.
kind of meet up on that.
That's
Well,
great.
we actually want to get together with you all, so this is interesting
Absolutely.
timing that you came in here. I would like to bring us together now, if you all have room
We
downstairs.
have room and we're trying to make sure that we are missing two or three of our
We
peers.
are too.
And so
We are
we didn't
too.
feel like, we took a vote and we didn't feel like it was right to move forward because according to the bill, it says that the work group needs to be comprised of 16 members. And so we're trying to find out why those numbers aren't there. If it is by choice, then we're gonna go ahead and move forward. But if it's because they found out Friday and they couldn't get with their, superintendent or their principal to get the time off yet, then we don't feel like we can move forward without them here because it's not because of their choice, basically, so.
Yes, the bill says in lines 25 to 27 that there's a second work group for standards for grades 6 through 12 consisting of 17 members. That's this group, so I feel that we should meet and talk about what we have to talk about, and definitely
No,
meet
that's
with
not
your
a problem.
group, but
It
maybe
doesn't
not
mean-
until this group.
It
So is
doesn't
that a
ever-
motion?
you know, ever-
I move that we meet as a group
Second.
as designated in the bill right now, and then meet later with them.
That's perfect.
But we're very interested
Yes.
in,
All right.
especially before we start looking at standards.
That's on our concerns, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, we just didn't know, that's why.
Okay.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you. So, we'll see if we can. This was having difficulties this morning.
So what was the consensus on the voting?
Did we vote on the quorum?
Two-thirds?
Yeah.
2/3 of people that are present?
No.
Or
No.
2/3 of the whole
Two-thirds of the
board?
membership.
The appointed,
Two-thirds.
Of the 17?
if
Uh,
17
that's-
people are appointed.
Of the number who have appointed and been appointed and accepted, and so right
That's-
now that appears to be 15.
That's to have a quorum to meet. That's not,
To meet, 2/3 of
You
those
can meet
people.
without a quorum, you just
Right.
can't vote.
Right.
That's Robert's rules of order.
Right.
And it was also suggested that we work toward consensus if it's a very close, if it's like 50.
Right.
in the bill, it says that active classroom teachers shall constitute the majority of each work group. How many, by show of hands, are active classroom teachers?
K-12,
Just active classroom, yeah, I'm gonna say.
I mean, I'm teaching, but.
K-12.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classroom teachers present.
So,
And the bill states how many?
majority.
It's interesting.
people who aren't here.
People that aren't here.
But we don't know that because we don't know who's been appointed.
I know,
That's true.
that's what's-
And we don't
We've
know
got-
if
we
they've
know
accepted,
two.
isn't that what the argument was earlier? We don't know if they've been accepted, if they're going to do it. Isn't that what the argument was earlier?
I don't know. Say that again.
When we were saying that we didn't feel comfortable meeting because not everybody was here, and the argument was that we didn't know if we were gonna even have 17 or 16 or whatever people, because we don't know who's been appointed, who's accepted, who hasn't. So we don't know if we've got,
We don't know if we've got a
A
majority
majority or
to
not.
even be meeting.
What are we talking about?
Active classroom
Where are you
teachers,
at on that?
first page, line 11. Active classroom teachers shall constitute the majority of each work group.
Does the word classroom teachers need to be defined?
active classroom
Yes,
teachers.
I'm wondering that because I do teach in the classroom frequently, and Nancy's a teacher,
I'm
and that's what I was
teaching,
gonna say.
I'm teaching college
You're
students.
higher
when I have
ed.
Yes,
teaching
so-
now.
Active classroom
teaching.
teacher.
Yes.
So these are
Higher ed.
K-12 standard work
Yes.
groups.
Yes, so how many, if we included everyone that's teaching, whether at higher ed or in the classroom, because it's not volunteer, maybe we need to get a definition here. How many would that entail? Okay, classroom teachers, raise your hands.
She's just, are you?
Mine is a-
I don't have a classroom per se, but I work with
9 is a majority even of 17, if we have 17 members.
I
So we should
think
be good.
it's 6 through
That's
12
gonna be
though.
used as a basis for
I
that.
don't know that it specifies
It
that.
doesn't
Yeah.
say that. It says active classroom teachers should constitute the majority, it doesn't say what level they teach.
Okay, do we want, we'll put that on the concerns list.
Yeah, because
Interpretation.
Well, the classroom teachers, it's difficult for them to be released from their classroom to be here. That's part of the problem. And they're intimidated by their superintendents who are threatening.
We had trouble with this earlier.
Yeah.
So,
It's not, the
well,
music's not.
I'm not sure that the higher ed is counted as a classroom teacher under this.
Well, except that higher ed people have to be appointed. I mean, to me, it's sloppy legislation, to be honest. Sorry, Josh.
Which is why people were getting
But I
avoided
mean,
last
there's
week.
just not, it's not clearly defined, right? I mean, if indeed we're in violation of that, or any of these committees are in violation of it, we have to start the whole process over, because it's not something we can fix. It's something that they would have to reappoint all members again, because the people making the appointments failed to read the bill and appropriately find the right committee.
Yes.
And another point is that since they were, from various directions, people were being pointed to this, I don't know, I don't think, I do know, that the person who appointed me asked what my job was and my qualifications, and if you applied, you were asked that. But they were obviously not consulting each other, so that
That's
makes
why the
even
committees-
more of a problem, makes it more problematical
That's why the
to
committees
meet
make
the
up.
criteria, yeah, the
Right, they make up
criterion
to
of X number of active classroom teachers. Which again, maybe that is sloppy legislation,
maybe
but as a
beyond.
legislator, I'm sure I would not have anticipated that.
Sure.
Anyway,
Because they don't know who's
No.
appointing, is what you're saying.
yeah.
Okay. We'll move on with, it's a very short video.
So, we do know that our schools are improving in the US. However, our schools are, the bad news is that while schools are improving in the US, they are improving faster in other countries. These are the same countries with which our students compete for the jobs in the market.
Is that based on what? Is that based on the PISA scores? Where's that information
Yes,
coming
I'm
from?
getting ready to share that.
Okay.
Because of this, the National Governors Association, the Council of Chief State Officers, decided we needed more rigorous expectations, and these statements are based on a program of international student assessment, as well as the trends in international mathematics and science study, the TIMSS data, and includes countries like Singapore, Finland, Ireland, as well as others. So just,
I would like to say something to that.
Sure.
That's a little bit misleading, that information. The Program of International Studies Student Assessment measures only the top 10% of their high-performing students in those nations. The United States assesses all of its students, and so the numbers are skewed because the PISA numbers only reflect the top 10%. If we only assessed or measured our top 10% against their top 10%, we would be ranked number 1. So it is very egregious for DESE to continue to say that the United States is failing in public education, because frankly, we are not. We are number 1 in the world. So I'm gonna ask that that be rescinded. That's incorrect information.
Well, I just want to say that I didn't hear that we were failing, so I just want to point that out. I didn't hear that we're failing, and we educate all.
I think the first statement was that we're
Yeah,
succeeding.
we educate all students here in this country, and that's a very good thing, so.
Well, but that argument is made to push Common Core forward. The argument is, and it's pitched to the superintendents and to the local school boards, that the United States is failing its educational duty by not educating our students to compete globally. And frankly, that's not true.
I don't
If
think
that
it's
were, if that were true, then number 1, all the international students that are coming to the United States would stop coming to the United States. And number 2, if that were true, then let's only count the top 10% of high-performing students in the United States against the top 10% of these other nations. But nobody ever wants to do that. Why? Because the United States is outperforming these other nations. So that's a really critical thing to keep in mind every time Common Core says they're internationally benchmarked.
I guess the other side of that is that, you know, if we only look at the top 10%, then we don't pay attention to every other student that is not in that top 10%. And I think that is something that we do well here in this country, is we educate all students. We look at all students. So I think we want to look at where there's only data provided to us in these kinds of places where we know that other countries don't educate all students, or at least don't measure the education of all students. That's what we have to work with. But we know that here we have high expectations for all students, and that's something that I think that we should be proud of, and we should continue to strive
Carrie, I agree.
to push. But I feel like if we don't look at that, then it diminishes anyone who falls below that top 10%. So I think we just need to be careful. I think we need to be careful of that. That's all.
Well, we're comparing apples to oranges.
Right.
We're
We always
saying-
will be.
And so it's false information to throw out to the public. It's irresponsible to throw out to the public that the United States is underperforming compared to China and Finland and Denmark and Germany. That's a false statement.
Yeah, Jill, I think we would all agree with you. I just have a problem with saying that that is pro-Common Core propaganda, because I've heard that since I was in high school.
Yes.
And you know,
Since
that
1990.
we've always,
Yeah.
But
America
it
journalism has always published our scores in comparison to European nations that do not educate their
And you're
students in the
absolutely
same
right,
way.
Lindsay, you're absolutely right.
So
It's-
that's just what you said, and I took some issue with that.
It's never been correctly stated. It
Correct.
never has been.
Right.
But it is in Common Core literature, and it's used as a selling point, and I take exception to that.
And has been forever. I mean,
Well,
not just in
I'm
Common Core.
talking about, but Common Core is the hot topic button right now, and so people are looking at, well, why are these so rigorous? Well, because they're internationally benchmarked. Well, actually, no, they're not. And furthermore, the measurements that you're using to sell this to the public is false information. So I think we just need to keep putting that out there. Even though the false information's been around for 30+ years, that's correct. But parents didn't know that. Now they're hearing it as a selling point tied to Common Core. And I think we need to get that out to the public. And this is skewed information, guys. Don't think this is gonna suddenly catapult us to the top of the pile. We're already at the top of the pile.
Perhaps I've misunderstood our purpose. I
Yes.
really am not here with a political agenda. I am here to make sure that the standards we use to educate Missouri students are standards that we can deliver, we can meet, and we can help improve our students' education.
Correct.
I don't really care
Yes.
who sponsored it, who's advocating it, that is irrelevant to me. I would just like to talk about the standards.
And I think that goes back to our purpose, the
Right.
first paragraph in House Bill 1490, develop, evaluate, modify, revise, and recommend those academic performance standards or learning standards. And you're right, Jill, when you mentioned we educate everyone. I talked earlier about those 1 million students in Missouri that we're responsible for. So we're responsible for the special needs students, the gifted students in all areas of our state.
And I think too, as a special education teacher, the word evaluate in that task at hand tells me when I want to evaluate something, I need to compare things. I don't want to just look at one set of something and be told that it's great. I need to see other things as well to compare and do research on to make a decision to make sure that what's in front of me is truly the best and not just hype. I look for things as, if is something valid, is it tested, has it been proven? And so that evaluate piece to me in my head means we should be looking at a lot of different things, and hopefully here we will do that.
Other thoughts about the video or reflections on what's been discussed in the work group? All right, then let's look a little bit at the history of where we've come from. So standardized tests have been around in the United States for a number of years. In fact, in 1918, the Army used the intelligence test. They were used for admission and placements. And then we have the National Assessment of Educational Progress, started in the 1960s, and that was to gain information comparable across the country, and how did we compare with others. So we have had national assessments for a long time in this country. Then Missouri's history with standardized assessments, and these are going to look very familiar. We have the Commercial Norm Reference Test, which districts have the choice of the Iowa Test of Basic Skills or the Stanford Achievement Test. Several of you may remember the BEST test that on Basic Essential Skills, 1979 to 1988. And then Missouri Mastery and Achievement Test, the MAP, was 1987 to 1988. And then where we are right now is with the Missouri Assessment Program, the MAP, 1999 to the current. Missouri has been using standardized assessments for a long time. As I mentioned, the Iowa Test of Basic Skills was voluntary. The BEST was a mandatory test. The MAP is mandatory. All earlier assessments, the pre-MAP, were normed reference. And then the component of the MAP assessment here is that it is both criterion referenced as well as norm reference. Do we need to clarify the difference between what a criterion reference and a norm reference test for anyone? Does anyone in the work group need that clarification, or would someone like to share maybe just share out what a norm reference test is?
My understanding of a norm reference is that it separates students and purposes to identify students that are especially talented. For example, the AP program quiz test. And a criterion reference test identifies whether or not students have met a certain criteria.
Any other clarification on norm reference, criterion reference before we move on? Then we have also the Outstanding Schools Act in 1993, which of that came the Show Me Standards. And the law, and I believe that's in House Bill HB1490 as well on page 1, the first paragraph of that, page 73 of the bill, said that no more than 75 academic performance standards. And you have a copy of the old placemat. It's been around for a long time, so if you need that or did not get a copy of that, there are a few copies floating around. But they are back. And if you look at the placemat, there are 40 content standards and 33 performance, which Missouri was at 73, and the bill said, statute said 75. So we're at 73. These will not change. They've been in place for voted on in 1996, so they will not change. Education professionals were involved in writing these, teachers, educators across the state of Missouri. Some of you may have been involved with that. State boards shall develop the written curriculum frameworks was part of that, and that each district shall adopt or develop curriculum that would be aligned to the standards. And again, it was part of the Outstanding Schools Act in 1993, and they were voted on, adopted in 1996. So any questions as you look at that? Spent a little bit of time looking at it. Spend a few minutes, share if you don't have a copy or you need to look at it. It was a 2-year process involved, and I believe there were around 140 to 150 educators throughout the state of Missouri that worked on this for 2 years to put it together. Again, these are set, and then what we will be doing is to examine the expectations. But these will not change. Just give you a few minutes to look through this. Any questions or thoughts from the group regarding the placemat?
What I particularly like about the placemat is that it includes fine arts and physical education.
And I was on that committee, and that was hotly debated. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And the rescue on it? That was-
Whether to be included?
Yes.
How many of you served on?
I just like to say I've given every one of those tests that you.
Okay. We're familiar with them.
Have a favorite?
No. I just work with what I'm given.
No, fair.
Let's move on. Back page. And then, 2002 was passed the No Child Left Behind in CLB. And what it did, it required states or districts to assess students at various grade levels. It looked at assess every grade from 3 to 8 and once in high school in 3 content areas. And to define the sanctions for states with proficiency rates below certain targets. And the problem with this was that states did various things. Some states just purchased an assessment to evaluate their students. Some states put in place standards or expectations. So what happened was those state assessments, when they came in, all varied. Some were higher than expected, lower than expected, and so forth. Because states did different things, the level of difficulty of both standards as well as the assessments did vary from state to state. So, questions on this particular slide? Okay, then the state's responses to No Child Left Behind. NAEP results, as I mentioned, it revealed variances. States with high percentages proficient on their own test were scoring very differently on the NAEP in some cases. So their own tests that they were developing in-house were much higher than the NAEP when they were tested and compared. So what the governors in the states decided to do is to create a level playing field. And they commissioned the Common Core State Standards for 2 content areas, and those being English language arts and mathematics. Those are the 2 areas. And that was because of the lack of consistency. And again, this came back from the governor's side to create a level Then, what is Missouri's response to No Child Left Behind? We had grade level expectations, GLEs, for K through 8, and then CLEs for the high school. And then every expectation will be aligned with the Show Me standards, and again, those were written in 2004, and then they revised in 2008, and the last revision was 2010. So Missouri's response to No Child Left Behind was to create grade level expectations, the GLEs and the CLEs, for the high school for each content area and each grade level, but all aligned, or had to align to the Show Me standards. Each item on Missouri's assessment program, the MAP test, is coded to show Me standard to ensure the alignment is there. So we need to point out that the standards we're looking at during the work group fall into the category that is the expectation level, and the Show Me standards remain. So again, the GLEs were written by Missouri educators. Some of you how many of you were on writing GLEs or CLEs from the state of Missouri, and they had release time probably during the school day or even during the summer on the very minimum budget to do so. When those were written and put in place, then teachers used the GLEs and CLEs to get feedback and collected that feedback, and then that is why we have the revisions from 2008 and 2010 on those. Might be noted that they're not all finished in the speaking and language section of English Language Arts because they ran out of time and also funding to finish them. Everybody aware of that?
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. You didn't write this PowerPoint, but you seem to know a lot about it. Did you say you were appointed by DESI to do this? No, you weren't? Okay.
Now I've studied the PowerPoint.
Oh, you did
so,
study it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You're very good at it. So.
Okay. Any questions? Standards versus expectations. In Missouri, the Show Me standards define the requirements for high school graduation, and the expectations define what will be assessed on the way to graduation. And expectations are always subject to the revision, hence the revisions in 2008 and the revisions in 2010. Missouri has standards, which I said are the Show Me standards. The expectations under those standards were grade level expectations, and they are still in place in science and social studies. These expectations are grade level or course level guides. And remember, they are grade specific. And then the flow chart. We have the Missouri Learning Standards, and those are the goals. It's just a generic name for all the standards as well as the expectations that fall under that. And then the blue placemat that you have in front of you are the Show Me standards. And then under the expectations, we have the GLEs, the CLEs, and then the Common Core. And then following that is the district curriculum. So Missouri Learning Standards is a generic name for all the standards in the state of Missouri. In House Bill 1490, the work groups will focus on the circled areas of the chart, which are the expectations. So that is our area that you will be focusing on as your work group. And then the state assessments will come from the expectations.
Wait a minute, you're saying, what did you say about the Missouri Learning Standards?
That's the term that encompasses all of that.
That's what we're revising.
That's what you're revising.
So this is not in our purview, these broad.
Wait, just a second.
Sure.
Are you saying that the Missouri Learning Standards is what we are currently doing in Missouri?
That's
What we're currently using?
That's what it's titled.
The current standards that we are using in Missouri right now
The Missouri Learning.
is the Missouri Learning
The
Standards.
Missouri Learning Standards comprise the GLEs, which have been around for a
Wait
decade.
just a second. So you're saying that right now in Missouri, this school year, we're using the Missouri Learning Standards?
Yes, they've been in place for 2 years
We
now.
have classroom teachers in
Right.
here.
But the Missouri Learning Standards are the Common Core standards,
And
correct?
the GLEs and the CLEs. So the
Correct.
GLEs and CLEs have been around for about a decade, Common Core was also added to that about 2 years ago.
The GLEs and the CLEs would be for your history, social studies, and science.
Gotcha.
ELA
Thank you.
and math would be the Common Core.
Gotcha, thanks.
And each state standards also are supposed to be 10% specific to the state. So in other words, there are the Common Core standards, but also any
Right,
others we
that are added to.
are added to.
Then also the bottom part, Missouri schools are responsible, are in control of their own district curriculum. They're in control of what materials are purchased, what resources, what teachers teach, and how information is reported to parents. So that falls under the district's responsibility here, the district curriculum. And I think you mentioned that Missouri has been implementing the expectations for at least 3 years. And districts again have purchased materials, resources, provided professional development, and so forth to match that within the last 3 years.
But districts had no choice but to do that. They had to purchase the materials and the curriculum, because Common Core state standards had to be implemented as of this year.
The Missouri districts never have a choice, really.
Right.
Because the
They've
state
always
says
been the state
these
standards
are the
are.
standards, no matter what those are. So the GLEs for PE and health and for fine arts, all of those things are state standards, so we don't have any choice but to align our curriculum to those. And so we align our curriculum to those, and then we adopt resources that best support the implementation of
The
that curriculum.
materials that districts buy
Up
are
to the
whatever
district.
they.
Right.
They can choose
Right,
anything
they
they
can pick
want.
their own, but what I'm saying is that they had no choice but to implement Common Core. They were not given a choice of they could pick. I mean, they, you can say they can purchase their own curriculum and choose their materials, but they did not have a choice of whether or not to use them or what. I mean, that was
Districts-
mandated
yeah,
by our
the
state.
Districts never have though.
They
That's the
never
point.
have.
When that history we just went through of like the 7 different standards movements
But
we've
in the
had,
past,
they've
is
always
this not
been
correct that
mandated.
they could change and add, I mean,
You
they
still
weren't.
can do that. The
You-
districts
yeah.
can still choose to add
Yeah,
anything they
sure.
want at the local level.
For 15%.
No, you can do whatever you want at the local
Bottom
level. You
line
just
is,
can't
as
be
much
in
as you can
violation,
get
and you have to make sure that you're teaching the state standards.
But
but you
if your curriculum is not aligned to your
The tests.
assessments, then you're cooked.
Sure.
Because of the MSEP 5 piece that's gonna tie to your accreditation.
And that's always been the case though, right? I mean, pre-Common Core, it was the GLEs and
Yes.
CLEs and No Child Left
That's all
Behind.
Sure, sure, but the tests weren't, or the standards weren't copyrighted pre-Common Core.
I guess one of
Yeah, I mean, I
No.
can't speak to
No,
GLEs and
no.
CLEs because I don't know. But it's pretty common practice for any group creating standards to copyright them so another group can't use them.
not,
No.
Okay,
That's
well,
happened.
NCTE's national standards are copyrighted. NCS, the social studies national standards are copyrighted. They're all copyrighted with free use
And you can decide
clauses.
to use or not use
Sure.
them.
Yes.
Sure.
But under
Or
Common
pieces of
Core,
parts.
Missouri is mandated to use Common Core
You-
currently.
You couldn't
Not
decide
exactly.
where to use
Decided
the
to
only
use
standard.
No,
Missouri,
Missouri did not, the governor did.
in order to be eligible for the national No Child Left Behind waiver and to be eligible for national grant funds in the Race to the Top grant fund race, we chose to adopt
We
Common
did
Core.
not choose, the governor did.
We did,
The
right,
State
but
Board of
now
Education chose, yes.
We're revising
Accurate.
anywhere.
And that's why we're here, right, is because
Yeah.
we feel that there's a big
Right.
to-do about whether or not that
Right.
was the appropriate thing to do. And that's the point. But yeah, there's always been standards always
Right.
dictate assessments, local districts always have to submit to the will of the state.
well, I think a big
That's
difference
never
there,
been.
Yeah.
I just need to say, you know, I've appreciated over the years, almost 20 years as a public school teacher in Missouri. And when we had all GLEs, I know for a fact that we've had issues come up with things that we were teaching and where it was and questions. And when we went to DESE with those concerns, they fixed them in the next 2 years. Within 2 years, on the map tests, it was changed and it was fixed. So
Well, then-
I actually saw that happen. I just have a little concern with not having that ability.
But that's why we're here, right? Because we have
Exactly.
that ability for
But I
this
think
bill
parents
to
don't
change
know
whatever we
that.
want.
You know, I don't think a lot,
Yeah.
if you're a parent and you haven't been in
Sure.
the school system for this long, know that we did have an ability in the past
Right.
to work through the standards that way,
What-
to have a say in what was
And we
being
still
assessed.
do, I mean, the only thing that's potentially at risk, right, is if you don't use Common Core, then we potentially are no longer eligible for the No Child Left Behind waiver and for grant funds, but that's not our problem. Our problem is to pick what the best standards are for our
Is it a
kids.
problem that might expire this year?
And they renewed it.
I think
Any other discussion from the work group? Before we move on. Okay. And looking at the timeline, if you look at the bill, July 2014 was signed into law. And then August to September was when the committees were to be selected, members of the committee. And I believe they were due in August sometime and then start meeting in September. So the window for 2014, 2015 would be the committee work and the public comment. Now, the work that you take from this or decisions that you make from this are not necessarily carved in stone because they're going to go through those public hearings, the comments, state board and so forth. This is just a process, and what you will be doing is making those recommendations based on this purpose. Develop, evaluate, modify, revise, and recommend academic performance standards, learning standards. So I'd like to make that clear.
And I would just add the public again, for the bill, the public comment sessions, the first one has to happen within 30 days of today. The next one, it says approximately 6 months of today, and then the last one is when we've made our recommendation.
Yes. And your liaison and your co-liaison will be representing you at these public hearings. And they will have to be state board approved. In 2015, 2016, the assessments will need to be created to align with those standards. Any changes that you make. So, again, I apologize, some of you had very short turnaround and notice, but you can see the flow chart, the timeline here, and,
So they will have 1 year for the assessments?
Yeah,
2 years
they certainly
for
could be
assessments,
doing, yeah, the
actually.
assessments won't be
2 years. Yeah.
administered spring 2016.
That's
I'm
probably
good with that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
and again, I want to assure you with the short timeline that we're gonna take all the time that you need as a group to work through what you need to work through to do this.
So I wanna make sure that, because I think that's important, what you just said, that on October 21st, we don't have to be done with this process, if that is the way
We have
that.
a year.
I understand, but what has been, I think, published, by media and,
But you have
3
six.
meetings, bam, bam, bam.
right,
Think
that,
it-
that we
yeah.
needed to be finished by that date. So, to keep things crystal clear, I just wanna make sure that that's heard, and I appreciate you saying that.
Which is why we can set our dates and use
Absolutely.
what we need.
Yeah,
We may not be finished after we finish
Yeah.
the 6th day.
thank you.
The person who called me said there would be 3 two-day meetings before the end of the year. That's what.
Yeah, this year.
So there doesn't have to be a rush.
Unfortunately, they didn't authorize
There
that.
doesn't have to be a rush like in the next 3 weeks
Correct.
or 4 weeks.
No, but
They
they
have to meet 2 days. Be gone 6 days in a month's time.
Sure.
And I want to
Because we have
remind
a year-long-
everyone that
You know.
everyone's voice must be heard. And we are striving for the best set of expectations possible for the Missouri students, but we don't have to have 100% consensus on every section as we look through it. We'll break them down into sections later today. Again, we are a recommending body, not a deciding body. So, and then 2016, 2017 district implementations, providing assessments are due.
Does the, I didn't read that part of the bill very thoroughly. Does anyone know, after the state board just either approves our recommendation or amends our recommendation, whatever they do, does the General Assembly then have to also confirm that for the bill? Josh, do you know? No. So it's just,
Doesn't say. In
okay,
line
so what the
16,
state board
yeah.
approves is what goes into.
Right,
okay.
that's on page 13.
Thank you.
It doesn't mention the legislature.
What was your name? I'm sorry.
I work for Senator.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what's name?
Again, just to reiterate, support the facilitator, the note taker, recorder. We are just support personnel. We are not to vote or to give our opinion or offer it. We are recording the information. We're also taking notes so that if someone needs to know what was said or what occurred, we can go back and observe it. It will be on.
I just have a question. I can't get past this. I can't get past why you're here. I mean, I can't get past why you are here doing what you're doing. Who has put you in this committee?
I really don't know who selected.
I mean, who called you and said, what's your name? I'm sorry.
I'm Kim Finch.
Kim Finch, you're going to be in this room on this day facilitating for this group. Who called you and said that?
You know, I cannot remember. I was called and asked in July, end of July, but I couldn't tell you.
Because I don't see that anywhere. And that's what I'm really having a problem, because I don't feel comfortable with you being in here. You need to sit down. I mean, you need to sit down and you need to let us get going with our work.
Again, I am not gonna offer my opinion.
I know that, but I don't care that. I think you need to have a seat, and you need to let this committee get moving forward with our agenda.
Did we vote on to move forward with this meeting?
Well, she is moving.
I'm moving because I have
As
a
a
problem
group.
with her being here
Did we
because
vote?
I wanna know
What
who
one?
put you in here. I was called by the Speaker of the House. These
Right.
people were called by different people because HB1490 states that they need to be here. I wanna know where it says you need to be here.
That they need a facilitator for the group. Is that your question?
Yes, it doesn't say that. So I have a problem with you being up here. I feel like this whole process
Did we
is
jot down that
tainted.
concern? All right, if we jotted down that concern,
It's not enough to
It's-
jot it down.
But
That's a
I'm part of
going
this
to be
committee,
addressing
she's
it,
not.
and
That's a
we voted
Delphi
as a group.
technique, because jotting it down goes nowhere. I mean, she jotted it down for us, because
we
we're
vote
the
as a group
authority. We're the
move on with
authority
the
to
day?
discuss this, and we're the authority to decide who our facilitators
We
can
all
be.
are, we're a group.
Right.
Yes,
It's
we
not
are.
just,
And we
we're
haven't
all
shown,
are.
it's just like Common Core, we didn't even get to look at it, but it was decided for us. The facilitator was decided for us, and it should have never been like that. We need to decide among ourselves.
Could you look up and see what we voted on as a group as to whether to move forward?
I'm asking her a question of why she's here. I want to know why you're here and who appointed you to be here. That's my question.
I am a support personnel,
Right, but who
and I will not
put you in this
vote.
room?
I will not
I
vote.
understand that you're not gonna vote, you're a support personnel, but why are you in here? That, I have a question.
I was asked to facilitate.
By whom?
I could not tell you. I was called in July.
Okay, I don't think you're being honest.
I really could not.
Well, I want you to tell me why and who put you in here. I wanna know that.
We can look back as how all the facilitators were selected. Is that what you would like to know?
Yes.
Okay,
I
we can
would.
put that, okay.
I wanna know, like, now, like today,
Because
like
there are 8
in.
facilitators.
I think it would be
Yeah.
helpful if you could let us know what, again, nobody envies your position for putting, you're asked to facilitate, but what is it that you were asked to facilitate for the rest of the day, so that as a committee, we can decide whether or not we want to do that or chart our own progress.
We are going to go through the rest of the PowerPoint, and then we'll be getting into each one of the standards.
And-
And that's when your work begins.
And what is left in the PowerPoint, if you wouldn't mind summarizing for us?
We probably have a couple activities, we're gonna look at a protocol,
But
and how
see,
we're
I'm
going to
not
go through
interested in
standards.
that. I wanna get busy with what we're supposed to be doing.
That's what the protocol is.
But who said this?
We didn't set it.
We didn't set anything.
And
This
there's
is our
no-
first meeting. I mean, I don't even hardly know these people because you're talking and I can't get to know my committee. I mean, this is not our protocol. This is someone else's, and I wanna know who this is.
And
That's what I wanna know.
something We might come to this, and you might have suggestions that we can
I
change as
don't
we go
care.
through.
I wanna know where this came from.
This-
Where you came
this-
from. I wanna know that before we go forward.
Springfield,
And
Missouri.
I'm going to go with our group that we voted to move forward, but I have a question and I want an answer. I wanna know where this stuff came from and where you came from
Okay.
and why you're here.
Okay, we'll put that, where are the facilitators?
I don't care about your concerns. I
Well,
don't
that is a
care about
concern you have,
where
right.
this is going. I wanna know right now where this came from and why you're
This
here.
is part of the PowerPoint, the protocol on how we work through the standards.
I appreciate the background because I was ignorant of some of this, and this is helpful
Yes,
to
thank
me,
you.
so.
I'm not saying I don't appreciate, I'm not saying, and I'm I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I wanna know where this is all coming from.
PowerPoint said Desi on the first slide.
Is that where, are you here through Desi?
That's where the PowerPoint is from.
Do
I'm
you-
not Desi. I'm not Desi. I'm not part of
Did you
Desi.
study the PowerPoint?
But,
If
but,
I'm
Give it
correct,
to
you
me.
don't
I
have a
would
voice
read
at this
through it.
table either, right?
Well, but was not appointed, and neither was she, so maybe we could vote that I could talk also.
But we
But I mean,
approved,
if you can vote anybody in that wasn't appointed in here, then anybody could be voted to talk, so I would like people to vote, can I
Let's
talk?
not devolve into silliness, please.
no, I
If
just
you
had a
problem-
question.
If you have a problem with the protocol, it looks to me like just a kind of standard committee process, but if there's something that you wanna address, I also appreciate the kind of summary of the background, because we wanna make sure that
I do
everybody
too.
does understand all
Well,
that.
we could have given that.
Do you want me
I
to
could
read
have
the
given that.
PowerPoints?
No, I just have,
I mean,
here's my thing, I have one question. I wanna know, two questions. I wanna know who brought her, why she's here, and where this came from. And we're ready to go. I just have a question, it's never been answered.
Facilitator.
I came prepared today to facilitate in case anybody didn't. Well, I did. I brought tons of stuff, and a lot of the stuff that she's got on here on the history, I've got in my own PowerPoint.
I think it's important for us to have, a facilitator who doesn't have a preconceived notion about where we're going with our committee. I mean,
That's why I wanna know
she's
where she's
neutral.
from. No,
No.
she's not neutral.
No, she's
I wanna
not
know where she's
neutral.
from, that's why I wanna know.
She's showing a
Let's not
Desi
question her
PowerPoint.
integrity, I think she's been perfectly neutral so far.
But
I'm
I
not
would
questioning her
assume
integrity,
that
I
she
want her to
has an
answer my
agenda.
question honestly of who told you to come here.
I have the PowerPoint from Desi. I am not a member of Desi's
So
staff.
Desi contacted you and asked you to
But
come
I
into
could
here.
not tell you who. But I have the PowerPoint. That's where the
But
PowerPoint
Desi
came
gave the
from.
PowerPoint. See, Desi shouldn't have any
No.
involvement in this process
That's
at
what
all.
I'm saying.
No, but
This
we're
is not
not-
a neutral thing. If Desi has her in here and they came up with a PowerPoint and they come up with all this, we need to come in here as a neutral committee to do what we were called to do, and that is to develop, evaluate, modify, revise, and recommend academic performance standards or learning standards. As a neutral party, not that's what we should be doing.
Here's what I read of the situation. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. As soon as we can take autonomy, I think that's a good thing. I think clearly, as I've said before, there's been a lot of miscommunication and a lot of mistrust among the various people that were appointing members of this committee, and that's part of why nobody seems to really know what's going on. I think it's pretty clear that in that vacuum, Desi planned this first day for the various committees in hopes to facilitate a easier process moving forward. I mean, I think it'd be interesting how many of us have actually engaged in standards writing work before. I think that's what this protocol looks like to me. It's just a tool to help us. I full-heartedly agree that we have the autonomy to change it, to scrap it, to do whatever we want in its place, but to me it feels like we're just trying to get systems in place so we can actually start this work.
Well, Nick, I'm gonna respectfully disagree that there was a vacuum. I don't believe there was a vacuum. I believe Desi preempted
Well-
the legislators. They barely got ready. I mean, I know a couple of them were out of the country in that week, and Desi just preempted and moved forward and sent emails out to the superintendents and to their database of email people announcing that there was going to be these dates. It wasn't approved, the very work groups themselves didn't even get to say, oh yeah, those
Right.
dates work for me.
But-
We were dictated to.
Right, and again, I'm not defending Desi's actions in the least, but the bill says we had to meet before October first. And
Well,
it is
sure.
September, what's it today?
26th.
September 26th.
But Nick, do
And
you
we
not
still-
think that the elected officials didn't know that? Of course they knew
I
that.
personally,
believe
as
they
someone
were.
who got called on Friday to join this committee, no.
Well,
I think it slipped their mind. I think they had a lot more important things to worry about.
I can assure you it did not, and I've
Okay.
been in communication with them all summer. It did not slip their mind. I think they had a plan in place. In fact, I know they did. They didn't even get to implement their plan. They were still working on the work groups. We were told that by August, the end of August, according to the bill, is when we needed to have all these people in place. Well, you know what happened, Nick? When we started trying to reach out to the teachers, they were threatened. They were told they were gonna not be able to go if it happened on a school day. They were told if they did go, they weren't gonna get paid. And then some of them were told, oh, we're gonna put this in your personnel file if you go. And so it's been difficult to get teachers to come. They've gone through a variety of lists trying to get people to come. So there's that piece. Where did that come from? The superintendents. Because of who? Desi.
That was not the case in my
Well,
district,
and
but you are right, there is no funding attached to any of this work, and so, you're right, I mean, it would fall on the district's purview to have to pay for their own subs for teachers to attend this, and that is problematic, but again, the legislature did not give us funding by which to, offset that cost.
Well,
Oh, Sorry.
I'm lucky to have a district that is willing to pay that fee, but a lot of districts don't have those resources.
Okay, please, I'm sorry, my cell phone, I didn't put on mute. My name's Nina Dean, I'm Representative Barr's assistant, he is the sponsor of 1490. You're right, we just assumed that Desi would pay for this. On Thursday, my screaming argument with Desi was, and I apologize because you are not going to be entered into this, how they came up with money with facilitators, but they couldn't come up with money for the teachers. Okay, I was told by Desi that on October, that's me, I know I got a text, sorry. In October, they will go and see if they have any extra money, and if they do, they will give it to you. We have every intention in January, and the problem is, we only meet January to May. In January, we will ask for emergency funding to pay for this, okay? And we will probably get it. I don't know if legally we can go retroactive it. Okay, I'm passing out a letter from the representative to everyone explaining what actually is in the bill and what I got more of them. If you guys want to just pass them down, like I'm in elementary school.
I'm sorry, but I missed who you were.
My name's Nina Dean, and I'm Representative Barr's assistant, and Representative Barr was the sponsor of 1490. Okay, I'm the person who knows that bill better than anybody else. I carried it across the building back and forth 16 times. Before we go any further, I have to tell you guys, I hear from Josh that you guys are probably doing very well compared to other committees. When I left all the other committees, they were still fighting over the fact they didn't have a full room. Okay. What I've agreed to do with a group downstairs is to have a meeting at 1 o'clock in the chamber, the House chamber. So you are welcome to come as a group at 1 o'clock to the House chamber where we can talk about planning. And everyone can try and get their questions answered. Not that there's very many answers because we left this pretty loose for you guys to figure it out. Okay. If I was in this room, I would elect a chair. Did you guys do that already?
no.
Okay, I would elect a chair. And I would elect at least a secretary. Those two. You might want a vice chair in case the chair gets sick. Okay? And I would let them run the meeting. Okay? There is nothing in the bill that says you have facilitators.
It's pretty difficult given that I don't know anyone else in the room.
I know.
I mean, I don't
Y'all
feel
need to go
comfortable
to
with
lunch
that at all.
with them. Y'all need to go to lunch with them. And you guys go went around and told who you were and what your
But that doesn't tell me who I think should be leading a
But
group
she's
like
not a
this.
facilitator either.
But at least that person seems to be like,
Prepared.
yes, prepared. I had
But
no
she has
idea.
an PowerPoint.
And I just, like having someone who
okay.
can get
What
me
I-
through is good, and then
And if Desi
learning
continues to
is
pay
good.
with for the facilitators, but it will not be in the budget ever again. Okay? It was never in the budget in the first place. They took it upon themselves to put it in the budget. So,
Well, just like, I think your name's Nancy, you said earlier about how you, when she was started to talk about, they were talking about Common Core and internationally benchmarked, and you said you're not here for that, you're here for, as a neutral position to do this. That's why I'm here, and I think that's why a lot of people are here, and I'm not here for a paid employee of DESI to be in here running this meeting. That's not why I'm here.
I will say, from a lot of experience on committees like this, it's often nice to have a facilitator who is not involved in the discussion. Because I find if I'm running the meeting and I'm trying to be part of the discussion, then I tend to skew the focus of the meeting.
okay,
Then we need to
I
find
need to
someone
take
that's
this
not
one
paid
step
by
further
DESI.
before you go, guys, do that anymore. There were only 2 rules for the committees in that bill. The first rule is how many people were in the bill, in the committees and who appointed them, okay? DESI was never tasked with making meeting times, making meeting days, nothing. The State Board of Education, who could have told DESI to do it, was to do the first meeting. After that, it was up to each work group how they were gonna do it. You can use conference calls, you can use Skype, you can hang from ceilings, I don't really care, okay? That's number one. Number two, the only other rule in that bill is that the standards that you look at must come from the public domain.
That's not
That
accurate.
means they can, huh?
That's not legally accurate.
Yes, it
No,
is.
it's not. Because public domain's only listed twice in this bill. One
Right.
on page 3, Article 7, local school districts and charter schools may adopt their own education standards in addition to those already adopted by the state, provided the additional standards are in the public domain. That's clear, but that only applies to local school districts and charter schools, not this organization.
Are you gonna hand it to me?
No, the second place it's located
Wow,
is
who
in
are you?
Article 9, in establishing, evaluating, modifying, and revising the academic performance standards and learning standards authorized by section blah, 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 of the statewide assessment system, blah, 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 the State Board of Education shall consider the work that is undone by other states, recognized regional and national experts, professional education, discipline-based associations, other professional associations, the work product from the Department of Higher Education's Curriculum Alignment Initiative, or, being the key legal word there, or any other work in the public domain.
Yes.
It's not an and clause, and any lawyer will back me up on
Well,
that.
the lawyers in the Senate who wrote it told me I'm right.
Okay,
Okay.
well, that is a contentious issue that it can go.
Okay, I will tell you right now, there's already one lawsuit in the state against Common Core. So, I personally would look at either Missouri, the old Missouri state standards or the Massachusetts state standards. Those are really good standards, but that's up to you guys.
And you're right, it is up to us. We need to decide, we need to look at standards, we need to decide what's
And we
best
have
for
been looking at
kids.
Missouri.
I'm tired of
Okay,
being, I feel like I'm a yo-yo right now, right? You've got
Well,
Desi
you're-
on one side, you've got the General Assembly on the other.
Who
Neither
wrote-
of you
I'm
like each
sorry.
other. No, who are you?
Who wrote the
Who
bill?
are you to be in this
Who am I?
public
Why should
democratic
you be in
committee
this
to have a
committee?
voice?
I'm gonna leave, I just gave the letter.
That
I'm
is
gonna leave.
my whole point with her.
Agreed.
I wanna know
All
why
right.
she's here, and if you're telling her to leave, then she needs to
She
leave.
clearly has a
Agreed.
position.
So
on
does
this bill.
she's from Desi.
Agreed.
She needs to
Okay,
leave too.
But
Okay.
let me explain to you, we wrote the bill and when we go to
Okay.
court, it's
This
us who
is-
go testify.
Getting out of hand.
So you say there's a meeting out.
It's up to you guys if you wanna show up
If
or
you
not.
wanna ask this lady to leave, then you need to ask her to leave. That's fair.
I'm leaving, no matter what, I got other rooms to go
We can
to.
do this, we can do this
But
a little bit.
Yes, we can do this, but it's gonna have to be fair and neutral.
Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're fighting a fight that isn't the purpose of today. I absolutely understand the concerns against Common Core. I can tell you, if I wanted to go into my personal story about how I was involved in this, you would understand that. But I'm not here on a political agenda today. I'm here to begin with the end in mind, develop, evaluate, modify, revise, and recommend academic performance standards for learning.
Yes.
I understand, Jill, I understand all of your points. I've been there, I've been listening, I've been to those meetings. It's that today, this bill passed. We may not like how the process evolved. I certainly didn't when I was sitting there looking at my flight in DC going, oh, great. Okay, absolutely, I'm not suggesting that there's no right or wrong here. I think we need to be respectful of somebody who came in to do a job, and I don't think she has any political agenda. And I think the job is to educate us so we're able to be positioned to work on our job. And I really would like to be able to do that.
But
And I'm
Elizabeth,
just appealing to the group that,
the
you know,
point of her
it's
doing her
respect.
job.
If we decide that we want her to leave, I don't think it should be a, let's throw her out of the room, let's have her leave. Let's have a discussion and let's focus on the end goal. With that, I'm sorry, I do have to step out and make a phone call. I will come in and if you wanted to address that, I apologize.
We
In
can be
order for
finished
us-
with
what-
this
what
and
is the
talking
be-
about the standards.
Right, what is the best way to accomplish our goal?
I think we need to
What is the
meet each
best
other.
way to accomplish our goal?
We need to become a cohesive group, and in order to do that, we need to spend a little time meeting one another. We need to know a little bit more than just our names and where we came from and how we got here. And I think that there is a very valid concern that Desi preempted the entire bill, and it's difficult. You know, now think about this. I know you're resistant to that, but think about this. If somebody were to come into the school district and preempt what the school board district really, really wanted, but they carried the cloud of DESI, and so they were wielding that as some kind of false authority, then the people would not be beholden to that. They would be beholden to their elected
Okay.
officials, because they represent the people.
Let's move forward. What's the best way to facilitate this meeting in a way we would all feel comfortable?
If we chose to facilitate it from among ourselves.
I don't feel comfortable with that. At this point.
Because you
All
don't know.
right, shall we
Because
vote on that?
Because I don't know everyone. And
Shall-
I, yeah.
shall we
Maybe
vote
we should
on
take
that?
a time for, right now, for
I
us to just
honestly
get to
thought
know
that's
each
what
other
we were gonna
and
do.
talk a little bit more about each one of us.
Exactly, I thought we were gonna take time to
Well,
get to
can
know
we
each
do
other.
that?
I'd love to do
All right,
that, I would love to do that.
then let's get acquainted.
Yes.
All right, let's get acquainted,
Wonderful,
and
I
then
love
we need to
that.
talk, do we feel comfortable with having someone facilitate non-objectively, in an unbiased way, the meeting?
Sure.
I agree.
All right? And we can vote on that, and however we need to vote on it. Is that a logical thing?
I think so.
I mean, I think sitting here arguing is, I'm a very busy person, as all of you are. I don't have time to sit here and beat horses. All right, let's talk about this. All right, you wanna start down here? What would you like? Tell us everything about yourself. Anything interesting.
Wow, thanks. So I oversee, several areas of curriculum in the Wentzville School District. Specifically, Wentzville.
Wentzville.
Yes. Specifically, specific to this group, or that's, relatable here, is K-12 English Language Arts. I am a former high school English teacher. And, I'm not really sure I don't really know what you all wanna know.
No.
Are you a nice person?
I taught for, how long did I teach? I taught for 7 years, prior to moving from the high school in my district to this position. Okay, and I have 4 children, all of whom I made special arrangements for, so I could be here today and overnight for tomorrow.
Yes.
So I'm just, gonna throw that out there. I agree that I think that we need to be respectful of each other's time, so that we can move forward and get some work done. I really don't know that I wanna say any more than that.
Okay, thanks for sharing.
What was your title?
Curriculum coordinator. I also chair a group of English language arts coordinators, teachers, facilitators, whatever, that meet in the St. Louis region. And it's the Language Arts Regional Consortium in the St. Louis area, so I work with that group as well. No, you go. I was made to go first.
I wanna go last. I think we should go right.
I think not. No, it's you
Let's
next.
go to
Go
next.
ahead, Jill.
Let's see, I have 6 children. And, I teach special education, and,
Where do you
also-
teach?
I teach at the Hardin Central School District, Hardison 2. And, in the past, I've taught, you wear many hats, you never just get to do one thing. You gotta, in a small district, they pull you out and they make you go and take a praxis, and now you gotta teach biology, and now you gotta take a praxis and you gotta go teach algebra. So I've done many, many other classes. Let's see. I'm a nice person. She's a nice person too. She's just not gonna say so.
I am not, I'll just throw
Yeah.
I'm pretty passionate about this bill. I'm pretty passionate about Common Core I'm not for it, I'm gonna be honest with you. So, I'm excited, but truly excited at the possibility of writing some standards that we own, that we wrote, and that we can proudly say, we wrote them and they're ours. They're Missouri's. I'm really excited about that. And I got a lot of friends in Oklahoma who, I feel kind of bad for them because they're really going through the mill right now with the whole process they've just gone through. And, all the way up to, the school board, suing the, legislature. Because the legislature, repealed Common Core, the governor repealed Common Core. And it was crazy that the Oklahoma State School Board sued the elected officials, and they lost because the Supreme Court supported what the legislators decided to do. And so I watched that closely because I just didn't want to see something like that happen here in Missouri. And, I've watched what's gone on in New York and Connecticut, and again, I just like to think that Missouri's a little more, civil, maybe, is a good word. In New York, it was bad, it went very badly for them, and I was in contact with them. They're 3 years into this, and they've got all kinds of problems up there. And I just wanna believe that in Missouri, we can get this done, and we can write our own standards, and they can be outstanding. I mean, before the governor signed us off on this, we had the second best set of standards in the United States. And so, signing us off on Common Core seemed kind of, it put a question mark in my mind. Why did he do that? If we had such outstanding standards, why did we get rid of them? That doesn't make sense to me. Especially learning that they were copyrighted. So, I'm excited really about the possibility of Missouri owning our own standards, writing our own standards. And,
My name is Casey Brzezinski, and I have 3 children, all of which are in Cary's district. I've been an educator for about 19 years now. I taught everything elementary on up through 8th grade, been a special education teacher, reading teacher, intervention, so I've done a lot of things, mostly focused in the ComArts or ELA area. And I just look at this as a good opportunity, again, to actually do something to truly make Missouri stand out from other states, and not just kind of settle for what everyone else is doing. And I believe that as a committee, we have a great opportunity here, and it shouldn't be wasted. So I think something really good can come of this that we can be proud of.
Are you teaching now?
Yes.
and what school is it?
Francis Howell,
Francis. Where is that?
St. Charles County. Middle school, by the way.
I'm Nancy Hadfield, give me the sign if I talk too long. I started my education career in 1971 as a public school teacher. Then I went to graduate school. I ended up teaching in higher ed. And I started as a French teacher. I was an English professor for a great deal of my career. But since I had a public school background, I eventually became the director of the teacher preparation program at something that is where I teach. And working with a lot of teacher candidates, the students who finished under my tenure went through several different educational standards. It was confusing to them. It was confusing to the faculty. I wouldn't mind settling on one thing and keeping it for 20 years if they would be flexible enough to allow that to happen. I have 3 children, I have 4 grandchildren, and I used to always think when I looked at teacher candidates, would I want my grandchild to be in that person's class? That was my gold standard. And I want to be able to prepare teachers to do what we need them to do, and I want them to learn to be able to use whatever standards are in place and meet those standards, but then develop their own personal goals as well for their students. And I think English majors, and I'm particularly interested in hearing from the English teachers in here, English majors know how to do that. They know how to work within the rules and then give their students more. And that's why I really like to just look at the standards. Actually, I taught English for a long time, and I looked at the Common Core standards and I thought, yeah, I could live with these. But I can live with the Show Me standards, I can live with the GLEs, I can live with the
the CLEs, I can look at those standards and say, yeah, I could design a class that would make me happy, and that would get my students where they need to be. So I'm not much of a rule changer, I just know how to work with the rules. So I want to hear what's not working about Common Core, that we would need to change it. That's what I would like to know. And I would like to hear what's really not working about Common Core, not just a political agenda about Common Core. Because I don't care where, when I hear something good, I'm willing to use it, I don't really care where it came from. I will steal anybody's lesson plan, even if you know,
Right.
if it looks good. I see one advantage to Common Core actually, because I also deal with a lot of transfer students. And you know, you have transfer students from a whole bunch of different states, and some of them are at one point, and some of them are 10 steps below that, and some are 10 steps ahead. And I think, given the mobility of our current student population, it might be nice to be able to say, oh, this student came from Mississippi, but we know he's in 3rd grade, so we know he's at least been exposed to this. Maybe that's a pipe dream.
Well, we have something in common. I too began my career in 1971, and I taught special education for about 14 years. I had the luxury of teaching behavior disorders, which I really enjoyed. And then I switched over to gifted education, humanities, English language arts, and I did that for 10 years, which I also enjoyed. And then in 1996, I had an opportunity to do professional development for educators and train teachers. So I joined a regional professional development center, and I've been providing training for teachers. I'm a special education consultant, and I provide a lot of special education workshops on how to meet the needs of special needs students, as well as other types of training and workshops for students. And I too, I don't care what the name of the standards are, I don't care what they're called, but I do want the standards to prepare students for success, not only for college, but also when they get out into the world of work. And I do know that when students are getting out of high school, that when they enter the world of work or into college, that they're not always as ready as they should be, because they're having to take remedial math 101, remedial math 102, in order to even get into the math class for credit. Same as with reading. So I'm just here to put forth the quality, to work as a group collaboratively. I don't care what we call them, but I think we've got a good group here, and we can put together a quality product that we can all be proud of and do what's best for kids.
Very nice.
I am Jeanette House. I have spent 32 years in the classroom, period. I have not been on any committees, special meetings. I have been dictated to by DESE and the powers that be for 32 years. I have worked with it, around it, best that I can, and I think that's what most teachers will do. With whatever you give them, they're going to do their best. And I am not thrilled with Common Core. There's a few problems in some of the wording and the verbiage used that I'd like to see straightened out. If I had a school meeting that ran like this, I would just be amazed. I mean, this is not how you run school meetings. This is, to me, not a local school meeting of teachers that get together and talk. And so I think I'm kind of disappointed actually in the way things are going. I didn't expect this. I expected to get in and get to work. But I am not saying that I approve of DESE as being the facilitator either. So, and I have a daughter who's a preschool teacher.
What do you teach, Jeanette?
I teach 6, 8 language arts. I've taught everything. I've been first grade for 8 years, 4th grade for 4 to 5, and then the rest was 6, 8. And I do teach at a K through 8, and it's lovely. I love it. It's small.
Where do you teach
Glenwood, which is West Plains, we have about 250 students. It's the best in education, as far as I'm concerned, that you can get.
So you have the best 6th graders, 7th
I
graders,
do.
and 8th graders.
I am the language arts department, and it falls on my shoulders. You know, whatever tests are given and the scores, I own them. Always have.
You must be good at what you do, you've been there 32 years.
Well, I gotta say, I do pretty well. I've had test scores that were always pretty decent. But it's a small community report, in my opinion.
You're good at what you do.
I'm done.
I'm Ann Franklin. As I said earlier, I'm on the Independence School Board, have been for 8 years, and I'm a retired teacher. I taught my entire career at Full Osage School District, and I taught English through the business department, in that I was a business teacher, and we had business writing, excuse me, business English and so forth. In our district, as soon as Common Core was accepted or adopted by the state, we began immediately writing curriculum. And as pointed out earlier, your curriculum is yours. And so you do with your curriculum whatever you think it takes to align to the standards. And so we've spent a tremendous amount of time. Teachers have done the writing. We didn't buy our curriculum. We didn't import it from anywhere. We wrote it in-house. And I think when we get to Lindsay, she may be able to shed light on that, having also been a teacher in the independent school district. And it's my impression, from everything I can determine, that it's working well and the teachers like it very much. And frankly, I testified before a Senate committee on Common Core. And I told them, and this is what my district has chosen, no matter what happens to Common Core, the curriculum that we have now is better than what we did have, we believe. And we'll keep on doing it, because it's better. And the Common Core probably had some influence, certainly did have some influence, but there's a lot of freedom to do locally what you choose to do with your curriculum. I mean, you might have some little disagreements with where the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and so forth, but to me, it appears not to be taking away the flexibility that we believe we need, and we call it local control, and I'm all for that. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, and I'm Mary Della Carter. I've taught and am a curriculum coordinator now for 9 through 12 for 34 years in Blue Springs. Grew up in the independent schools. So I'm from that end of the state. I really appreciated Jill's comment on what her goal of the standards we own. I think that's my goal as well. And if I had to identify a goal that brought me here, I really like the idea that this legislation it offers us an opportunity to go back and revisit the standards that are already there, and that a bunch of us have worked on for many, many years, having taught for 30-some. And I was one of the people that worked on those back in 93 and 94 on the Shoney standards, and remember how contentious that was. So I guess I'm not especially surprised, especially when you get a serendipitous selection of people anyway from many sources. There's probably going to be a little contention at the front. It's not like it, in your district or mine where you already know each other going into it. But I feel like from what I've heard so far, everybody here has such a terrific background that we're bringing, that I feel like as soon as we can get to those standards, and my personal favorite, I will just tell you, is I am a very strong advocate of teaching students to find evidence to support a claim, whether they are reading a text and find the evidence that supports that claim, and they can process it and think about whether they agree or disagree and why, or whether they themselves are wanting to present a claim about a strong belief or attitude or viewpoint they have, and then that they need to find the evidence that is relevant and that supports that. And in the standards that we have in place and have had in place for years, that's always been there. But I do like the fact that in the standards that we the last couple of years, that has been a strong emphasis, which is why I voted for cognitive processor as my, being able to think, reason logically, and mainly problem solve. So I'm really confident this will do.
Well, I don't have a background of any, I'm just a parent, and I have 3 children. I'm getting ready to graduate in December with an accounting degree from Southeast Missouri State University, but I did get halfway through an education degree. I have, like I said, I have 3 children. I'm a substitute teacher in Saxon Public School District. I have been for 8 years. I'm here because I'm very passionate about my children. And I've seen a lot of changes. I have a gifted child that's 8, and I have 2 children, they're twins, they're 13, they're also, they're straight A students, they're very, very gifted. All 3 of my children are, but one of them is actually in our gifted program. From being in all different schools from kindergarten through high school for 3 years, I've seen what has happened when our school district went to the Common Core standards. I've seen what has happened with our teachers and what has happened with some of our students, and I know what's happened with my own children. My children used to love to go to school. They loved to learn, they loved to read. They were very, very good in math, and they still are, my children are succeeding, but they absolutely hate school. My 8-year-old cries every day. She cries because of the new math that's come in. She cries because of, and I don't know if it's my school district or if this is a norm. The reading material and things that she used to be able to read and that she did read has changed a lot. And even with my 7th graders, read all the time. They love to read books and all different kinds of books. But now that has changed so much that they just really hate school. And I, as a parent, I hate that because I want them to love to learn. And I think that they have to have a love of learning to succeed in life. And so my passion stems from my own children, but it also stems from a lot of our teachers in our district feel like their hands are tied with the new standards that have come in. They feel like that they are being told how to teach and when to teach, and that they're not given the freedom that they have had in the past to do what they, like some of you have said, I take the standards and I do with what I want. I know a lot of teachers in my district don't feel that way. And like I said, I don't know if that's our district, if it's, or how that has come about. But
Because there were always standards.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think, just hearing them, the new standards that have come in, this has changed things in my district. And I've seen a lot of people, a lot of parents, and a lot of kids in our district that are really struggling, and they're really, really struggling with these new standards. And it's not that, we have kids that are in our gifted program that are crying, that don't want to go to school because of the way things have changed in the last year in our district. And so my passion stems from my experiences, not as an educator, not knowing, what you all have been through and how this works and all this, but my passion is from I'm seeing my kids and I'm seeing the kids in my town and in my district and their struggles with, what has happened. And I also see I'm not saying everything with Common Core and what has happened is bad, but I'm just, seeing firsthand of things that are not working. And I too believe that, my trust is in you all that have the background of, what works and what doesn't work. I don't have that expertise. I can tell you what I see, from our children as far as the, and the teachers who are afraid to say, I don't like this, because they're afraid of repercussions from, higher ups of complaining about things that are going on and things like that. But, and I'm not in here to cause problems or be cantankerous. I want this process to be neutral and fair. And I want the standards that come out not only to be the best for my children, but for everyone. And I don't want kids to have to go home and cry because they hate to read now, or because they're bored, or because there's so much put on them right now, or because they hate math because of the way things have changed. I want them to love to learn. You know, I loved school. I loved to read. Things were very different when I was going through school. So that's kind of my passion and my goal of.
Hi, I have a daughter who's a senior, and that's interesting. It's an interesting year. This is my 14th year of teaching 9-12 English. I started my career at Fort Osage, was in Independence for 7 years, and now I am back in Fort Osage this year. When Common Core came out, I love educational discourse. I love being able to have conversations with educators about what we're teaching our children, and at no time do I think that that should be stagnant. Because kids change and education changes, and there are better ways of doing things. So at no point does year 14 look exactly like year 13, because they're not the same kids. So I love that opportunity. So when Common Core came out, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to know as much as I can about this, and looked for opportunities to do that and to study. I found an opportunity with Better Lesson. It is a company out of the East, and I applied to be in their master teacher project and was accepted. So I was one of 5 educators from across the country last year that was a Better Lesson master teacher, the only one in Missouri. And I was charged with creating a lesson for every day of instruction last year that was tied to Common Core. So every single lesson that I did last year was tied, and then I met with a personal Common Core coach who talked me through what that looked like, what the standards looked like, and then I revised them, and they are in the process, in my last revisions right now, being published for the world to see, the great things that my kids did. So I've had a ton of experience with looking at those every single day. I know them by heart. I have decided what I really, really enjoy about them, and like Maridella, I am a huge proponent of getting kids to think critically, and the standards have done that for my students. I looped with them last year, which was a great opportunity, not just to say, oh my gosh, in this 1 year things really went well, but I had them as AP Language and Composition juniors, and then looped with them as AP Literature and Composition seniors, and worked through that with Common Core. So I was able to see what happened to their reading scores, what happened to their test scores, and not just as a 1 year snapshot, but actually as a 2 year growth, which was really fantastic. So I look forward to this opportunity, and I think that it is fantastic that we're given an opportunity to do this and to be able to have conversations. And I appreciate other people's perceptions, because at no point have I ever felt like the standards, no matter what they were, when I was in a room very similar to this, writing the CLEs years ago, or working with Common Core, at no point have I ever been told that you have to teach this literature in this way, ever. And it's, you know, I think that is the best part about being a teacher, is that if that's happening in a district, that hurts my heart, that would ever happen to a set of teachers, because it's certainly not the way that it's supposed to be, and it's never been published that way.
And English teachers, I think, have a particular advantage.
Yes, I love what you said.
All right, my name is Karen Mason. I know exactly where I'm at on this in the thing, because I'm the only CTE teacher in this room. I teach family and consumer sciences. I'm entering into my 34th year this year. I teach in a rural district in southwest Missouri. I am very south, close to the Arkansas border on the other side. My school is East Newton, and I have been at that district for 27 of the 34 years I was in the neighboring district. I have a lot of students, about 144 of them this year by myself. I teach 9 through 12, which you can do that math and figure out how many I have in class. My largest class has 32 in it. I have one child, and my husband is an agriculture teacher, and he teaches in the state of Arkansas, and he's in northwest Arkansas, very close to the line. He drives 23 miles to school. I say that to tell you that they adopted Common Core a long time ago down there, and I'm sad to say that this is true, but I'm going to tell you, I think they're far ahead of the game than we are in Missouri, and I never thought that in the past. And honestly, when he went there, he would have told you it was the other way, that he's been down there 25, I think this is his 25th year down there. He top 5 in Missouri. And then he crossed the line. They do get better pay, I'll tell all of you that. They make a lot better money, but their retirement is not near as good as ours is. They pay Social Security. So, anyway, to say that, he is, I will tell you, he's an ag teacher, but he's a very good ag teacher, and because of the Common Core standards and things they have adopted there, he's really uses technology in his classroom. All of their students have a computer that they use. His room has been that way. He is a totally paperless classroom, and he teaches with technology on a daily basis. He's working on his lessons every night. I'm totally amazed. He said, I wish I would have done this a long time ago. I will tell you, the only 2 areas they tie it to most of the time are the English and the math. And all of his lessons, he ties it to that. I will tell you that I too believe that because of, I guess, where I'm located, we have a lot of students that transfer in and out, come from neighboring states. And I'm going to tell you, I probably don't like the way that Common Core came about in our state, as I don't like a lot of other things that have happened. But I will tell you that I could see a value in that, because like in my area, we've had national standards for a long time, and we've been using those in family and consumer sciences. And our State Department CTE director of family and consumer sciences was one of the people that was involved whenever they wrote the national standards for us. I see a lot of value in, because I get students that come from another state, and it's like they're not anywhere close to where we're at, and they should be. They should have, even neighboring school districts. So I can see the value. I kind of believe that it's probably not ever really going to happen in my lifetime before I retire, that we actually will see, kids do that where they're all in the 3rd grade and they all know the same thing. I'll tell you that I do know that like districts have that, because we've had a huge discussion in our district. We have a lot of pushback from parents that they didn't like the Common Core, and they didn't think that it was a good idea, and that they were going to mandate what we teach. In the 34 years I've been teaching, this is the 34th, I've never had anybody come to my classroom and say, I want to know where that's at. I do lessons, I'll promise you that, and I'm teaching what I need to be teaching in that class, but I've never had anybody, I can't say that, the DESI's been there and they looked at my stuff, but I've never had anybody, they don't mandate exactly how I'm going to teach that lesson. And so if that's happening somewhere, I feel bad for the kids too, because I don't think there's one way to teach all kids. There's not. I'll also tell you that I have had the opportunity in the last 3 years to travel around the United States, because I've been the national president of ACTE, which is the Association of Career and Technical Educators that's housed out of Alexandria, Virginia. And my role as the president in that 3-year term was to travel around, be a public relation person for the association. But I attended, and I told you, I just got home Saturday from Indianapolis, Indiana, where they were having their state conference, and I attended that state conference. So I've had the opportunity to see a lot of states' strengths in what they're doing in their curriculums and what they offer in their professional development to their teachers. And I will tell you that across the 50 states, you know, there are very strong states, and I believe that Missouri is a very strong state, and I'm proud to be from there, but I believe that there are a lot of states that struggle. And when it all first came about, I had heard about it a long time ago because Career and Tech Ed adopted this. They were in, Missouri was one of the had key people that were on those committees that talked about the Common Core for Career Tech Ed, and so it wasn't a big thing to me then when it came about. And I'm also going to tell you that, you know, teachers teach what, and we've got poor teachers in my experiences over the years that don't teach what they ought to be teaching, and I don't know that this is ever going to change that. And you know, I see that in my own district. I have a child, she's 31. She was in top of her class, and you know, education's important in our house, and we work to make sure she went, you know, has a 4-year degree. She's you know, what I want all my students to be, and that's a productive, you know, citizen out there that's, yeah, that's right, and you know, can make it. But I will tell you that you know, I live in the district I teach in. I went to school in the district I teach in, and so I have a vested interest in that district, and I love it very, very much. And I see, you know, in my own child how she was prepared, and in some areas she wasn't prepared as well. And she's a straight A student and always was, and was, you know, the most devastating time in our life was when we entered college at John Brown, and she got her first B in her lifetime, and that about devastated her. And y'all know what that did to her grade point average from then on, because she never had the 4.0 ever again, because she had that one B, and that's the only B she ever had. And it was in a science, it was in biology, and that was a different type of instruction than she had ever been exposed to. And I don't know that instruction's changed in our district. So, no, I think education has lots of issues, and to me, when I look at Common Core, I kind of look at it like, could this be something where we could all, maybe for one time, everybody would say every 3rd grader, every 6th grader in English, or whatever, they need to know these concepts. And I think that's a dream, and I hope that happens in my lifetime. But so I'm here, I'm certain I'm that CTE person on there, and but I will tell you, I love what I do, and I think that this group will be a group that we can work together.
Elizabeth, you want to go first or second?
I don't care.
Up to you. Go for it.
Okay. I'm Elizabeth Lawler, and it's great to hear everyone's stories. So sorry I missed some of them. I am a mom of a 4th grader. I've worked on education policy legislation since when I was in Washington, D.C., working on policy as a staffer in line with Case from about 1994 on. And I also am the president of a 501c3 organization, and it focuses on economically disadvantaged students. It's called the JG Circle of Hope. And so our involvement in this was initially political. Our involvement was that for students taking what was the GED, which is like Kleenex, and now it's the HiSET, the Common Core standards would wipe them out of the process, in our humble opinion, because there's no historical perspective. So we're talking about folks in prison, and we're talking about people living out of their cars, people that dropped out and are re-engaging because they've hit rock bottom. And so they left school. So asking them to understand that part of it was going to be difficult, and yet they need they need to pass high school ability exam in order to work on their way to become self-sufficient. We don't believe that's the only thing you need to be self-sufficient, but it's key. And so that was our engagement, and worked with the coalition, Gretchen and Ann and the rest of the gang, and we discussed how we were going to have legislation. And at that time, it wasn't discussed among them that they were going to have the bill to repeal. I know there was one by Representative Barr, but I went to Senator Lamping at the end of the day, and I asked him, to introduce the bill in the Senate side. And my personal view of the reason why I did that was because I felt like in order to have the conversation that we're now having today, we needed to start somewhere, and we needed to have a Senate push as well as a House push. Representative Barr been already working on it for 2 years. Let's give them a little help, a little partnership, we all work better together. So that bill went through the process. I had my own bills to help disadvantaged students, and so I was basically support. At key times was able to help it in my conversations, but really left the lobbying to the lobbyists, the able lobbyists team and the rest of the group there. Now, what did I believe? I think Chairman Cookson really helped me figure it out. We had a conversation about it, and our standard's good, our standard's bad. And we both kind of came to the agreement that, like many things, we see shades of gray. Not all standards are good, not all standards are bad. There's a lot of anger and resentment and fear over how the standards occurred. And I share those, I feel that, I understand that, I love my little girl, like all of us, I die for her. That's, not an understatement. So I understand that kind of a movement that just came about because of No Child Left Behind, and then Bill Gates deciding he wanted a computer in every classroom, and all the reasons, we've all heard them. It was a really unsatisfactory, and that's a huge understatement process. So there's no lack of empathy for those in this room that have expressed concern about how this process was moved forward today. However, I would like to say that the process did move forward. The process moved forward to where we're all in this room. I think we're privileged to be in this room. I don't care if it's Ceci, I don't care if I meet, I don't care where it came from. I know it was completely confusing. I understand that there were some things that shouldn't have happened the way that they did, but I've worked on the Hill in DC, I've been in politics. I'm not gonna let the perfect be the enemy of the good here, because you guys are such great people. I wanna get to know you, I wanna work on this. And so what I see here is that we have a huge opportunity. The bill passed, we're no longer fighting Common Core in the state of Missouri. And I feel a little bit earlier in this room, we were fighting Common Core. We're not fighting Common Core anymore. We won, guys, we won. We didn't win the whole enchilada, but we have an opportunity to move this forward and say what we want to do. And if we evaluate all the standards and we want to throw them out because we don't want our little girl coming home crying, then that's what we decide to do as a group. And so, I just want to thank all of you for, I know your service here, and the chance to get to know what you've already accomplished. I've heard so much from the two ladies sitting next to me about their careers. It's amazing. And so I just wanted to thank you for that.
My name's Nick. I work in Columbia Public Schools. I'm the ELA, English Language Arts and Social Studies curriculum coordinator. I've been there, this is my 4th year in that capacity. I taught for 7 years before that. Started out in a program called the Success Center. It was for 9th graders who failed multiple courses as 8th graders, and so I got them for 1 hour a day. Somewhat academic tutoring, somewhat just professional counseling and everything in between. But it was really a formative experience for me as a teacher. And then I started in Fulton, taught English for a little bit, did that when I first came to Columbia, and then went back into teaching. In Columbia, we team teach our English and social studies courses together. So I taught a government course on the English side for a number of years until I took this job. And this job I took rather reluctantly, the coordinator position, but I took it largely because we were up for program evaluation at the time, and I was very, and this again was 2011, so the timing's interesting on all of this, right? I was very discontented with the standards we currently had, both at the state level and at our local level. I thought they were extremely generic, and I thought there were a ton of them. There were about 125 learning objectives that we said we were teaching in Columbia. They were the exact same learning objectives from 6th grade to 12th grade. And so what happened at a practical level as a teacher is you just ignored them because you couldn't teach them all, and you didn't know like what the person before you taught and what they didn't, and so there was no organization to it, there was no specificity, they were all just kind of touchy-feely. And so you just kind of did what you wanted, and when it came to state assessment, you just kind of hoped that the shell game worked out and the ones you covered were the ones that were on the assessment. And so I was passionate about trying to do this work, what we're going to do right here, right? Let's create a system that's better, and that was about the same time that Common Core was starting to come out. Now, I don't feel as oppressed by Common Core because in our district, we actually voted, we spent the entire 2011 year as teachers looking at it, researching it. Do we like it? Do we not? What do we want to do? We ultimately made the decision to adopt the Common Core standards as our local learning objectives, and we made that decision before DESE did. And so we felt, again, when we looked at where we had been and we looked at other documents that were out there, we thought that the logical progression from kindergarten to 12th grade was one thing we really liked. We liked the increased emphasis on nonfiction reading and on more writing. I mean, this is a bit of a side tangent because it's more assessment. We say we're teaching writing, we've always had writing in the standards, and yet we haven't assessed writing in over a decade. So that, to me, that's a problem. And again, that's a tangent. Sorry. But anyway, we liked the reading, the nonfiction reading, we liked the writing, and more than just in the English classroom, we liked that sort of message of everybody's a literacy teacher, and you teach it in your area because you're the only one who can teach them how to read a primary document in social studies or to read a technical manual in practical arts. And so those are all positives we liked. I mean, there's certainly some negatives of the standards too. I don't like, for example, that 9th and 10th grade are lumped together and 11th and 12th grade are lumped together. I wish they would have continued that progression. I definitely don't, historian in me, don't like the way they came down. I think both at the state level and at the national level. To be frank, I think had McCain won the election, we still would have Common Core standards, but we would not be sitting here today. Because I don't think the McCain administration would have had such a heavy-handed approach in trying to bait states into adopting them. And I think states would have made the decision themselves in processes like this that actually we don't. Now a huge disclaimer though, I think I'm talking English. On the math side of things, I think there's a very healthy debate that should be had because that is a fundamental sort of difference in thinking between what we have been doing and what Common Core is asking you to do. But in the English world, honestly, when you look at the difference, the only thing that I saw that was a lot different is specificity. These are more specific than they have been in the past. And to me, from where I'm sitting, that's a positive thing. And for our teachers, again, we've been implementing it since about mid-2011, I guess the end of the year 2011, so 2012. But our teachers largely like it. But again, we have a philosophy that again, I think is the appropriate educational philosophy. We don't mandate, we mandate what it is you're supposed to be teaching. What is it we want kids to know? Beyond that, it's up to you at the classroom level to decide the how. And I think that message has been lost in some districts in implementing Common Core. I think you have, and I totally buy into the cynicism of the business world out there capitalizing on Common Core. But to be honest, they were capitalizing on other standard movements too. It's just this gives them a bigger pie if everybody's across the nation is doing the same thing. So I guess I find myself situated in the middle. If I have a bias, it is a bias towards I want standards that are vertically aligned, that you do see learning progressions from kindergarten through 12th grade that really specifically articulate what it is we want kids to know and that are reasonable. Again, and maybe Common Core, the 42 versus 24, depending on how you double count standards, right? Maybe that's even too many, but I think when you get much more beyond that, why are we giving you standards? Because you're not going to be able to teach them all. So I guess that's where I kind of sit. The only other thing about me, I teach at Mizzou as well. I'm a doc student in the English Ed program, and so I teach some graduate courses there too. And I have 3 little ones. I don't know if I said that. My oldest started kindergarten a few weeks ago, and so it's like, oh.
Well, it is lunchtime, and we've been told to go about 5 or 10 minutes early, or you will be late for lunch. So I do have lunch tickets for everyone. Do you want to think about the people that you've heard from during lunch, and then come back as a group and process that?
Yeah. That sounds good.
Okay, and let me go over some of the rules. We're eating downstairs. I do have meal tickets for everyone, for the committee, and it's for $9. And again, it's down on the bottom floor. And if you purchase more than $9, then you have to pay for that. I think $9 should pay for it. Everyone's on their tickets, so. Just pass them around once you get your ticket. We'll start this direction and this direction and see if your ticket's in there.
I got yours, I have yours. Okay. It's right there on top.
Thank you, yes.
Wrong direction.
Oh, these are running.
Let me just write in.
You're not told they have to have their names. Janet and Dr. Hadfield, I have yours, I'll just bring them to you.
Okay, but these do not have,
Yeah.
Carrie,
Your name's in there too.
Carrie,
I don't, no, yeah, I've got mine.
Karen,
I'm here.
okay, Karen, there's
Thank
yours. Tori, Dana, Dr. Carter, Lindsay.
Yes.
Here's Lindsay.
God bless you.
Danita, Danette, Ann, Ann's here.
What time do you want us?
Try about,
What time do we wanna be back?
1:30,
There's only one other one in this building.
1:30, 1:15.
Wait, are we supposed to go to that meeting at 1 or is that?
I think that's open to your discussion. Did everyone get a ticket?
Or what it was?
Did you get one?
I didn't get one.
Okay.
There are blank ones.
Okay. Did you get a ticket? Elizabeth, did you get a ticket? Who did not get a ticket? I did not. Heather? Okay. Anyone else?
I didn't come in yet, but
Okay, you're
not
new.
necessarily surprising.
Okay, so everyone on the work committee have a ticket?
P Ridge.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just across the road.
Yeah,
That's a little farther south, isn't it? I think so.
Quarter after one.
Order after.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit south, more south. Yeah, it's like 15 miles are in Missouri and then it's 7 miles to across the line there. So, he likes it there. He's been there 25 years. And he likes it.
Wow.
They've been doing
So
it.
I am teacher and I'm still gonna say I get teacher.
Right.
No, you're not gonna know.
Yeah.
I'm fine. That has to be.
Competitive in our house, very much.
Gosh, yes. My daughter was very active at FCCLA.
Yes.
And then, I guess her freshman and sophomore year, and then her junior and senior year,
She was in FFA, yeah. My daughter was in actually my classes, and of course Perry didn't teach there, but he made her take it in junior high. He told her, you have to take 1 year of it, you have to. So she did when she was in 8th grade, and it was kind of funny. And we live on a farm, and
Yeah.
she did, I would tell him, you sure seem to have a lot of patience with other kids, and with her like showing cattle and stuff. He was just
Not with her.
not so patient.
Now, what does she do? What does she do
She
now?
is a general manager